Over the course of history, scholars and academics burden themselves with the fruit of knowledge, with such important questions as, can you beat Mario 64 while drunk driving backwards? And how many cigarettes can I stick in my eyes before it hurts? I'm here to put all these academic losers to shame by answering the most important question one can ask. It's not about the beginning of the universe or the human need to be recognized by a god, but rather, and with chapters 3 and 4 on the horizon, who is the knight in Deltarune? No, it's not time for the intro yet, or Nightmare Night. We'll talk about those in a second or two. The first thing we need to talk about is why. Why? Well, one thing as Deltarune Schizo fans often ignore when night posting is the why. Why would anyone as seemingly innocent as our main cast do anything at all, to put their own life as well as the lives of everyone they've ever known in potentially world-ending danger? Susie's rough around the edges, sure, but she ultimately means well. Rowsley just wants to make people happy. Kris just needs a day to themselves, to be honest. And Noelle, well, if your father was destined to die, your mother was all but indifferent to you, and your sister hasn't been seen for well over 10 years, I think there'd be more than enough justification to start bringing fiction to life.
When the horror starts to show and the darkness of it glows, those who used to feel like home seem so far away. May we hope for that great day where I'll proudly get to say you're alright. The darkness sleeps tonight. Here's the sky and an angel flies tonight.
What do you call an antagonist with no understandable motives? Badly written. Luckily, the knight isn't badly written. But who could the knight be? Some folks think it's Kris, but I didn't wake up this morning choosing to be wrong, so if you couldn't somehow tell from the intro, I'm calling Noelle Holiday to the stand. Why? Buddy, you have no idea how many hyper-specific little moments just work with her being the knight. Like, we're factoring in the amusement park rides that keep showing up in the Dark Worlds level of hyper-specific. So, where do we all start? Well, this one's a little subtle, so pay attention. Noelle indirectly caused the inciting incident of the entire narrative, and nobody talks about this somehow?
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Elfie's gonna find chalk. Class goes quiet, nobody fesses up. If you tell Noelle that Susie likes eating chalk, she'll bring her a box of the stuff. A teacher's pet that's been shown so many times to lend supplies to her classmates lies to the person who'd need it most, just so she could be with Susie in the supply closet, subsequently replacing the role Kris would have filled. Kris being partnered with Susie, Kris subsequently spotting Susie eating chalk in the halls, everything leading up to the supply closet, all of that happened because Noelle wanted an adventure with her crush. That's kinda gay. Why? Because I think Noelle opened up the Chapter 1 Dark Fountain before class. More specifically, the one we go in for Chapter 1, not the Castletown fountain. I feel like I should bring that up because I'm unsure if people remember that they're two separate fountains. I feel like that's a thing that might just be like really kind of obvious knowledge that some folks just kind of like intuitively don't remember because like you enter the Dark Fountain and then you go into the other one, and just bringing that up like just in case. Anyways, I think in one way or another, Noelle learned about creating these dark worlds through her friend, Caddy, someone who is consistently linked with the occult. This gives Noelle a plausible reason to know how to use magic, and more specifically, how dark worlds are made. Does anyone else find it weird just how many fair rides show up in both the Dark Worlds so far? I mean, in Chapter 1, we obviously have the merry-go-round with Jevil, but in Chapter 2, we see 4 rides. Those being the roller coaster with Birdly and Spamped and Neo, the teacup rides in Queen's Mansion, the Ferris wheel, and the Swan ride. Once is a coincidence, but 4 times after that, fool me once, Tobias Fox, fine. Fool me twice, Tobias Fox, fine. Fool me thrice, Tobias Fox, fine. But 4 times after the first, get out of Brown, bust a town. Being the daughter of a mayor organizing a town fair would surely occupy your headspace if you were to, I don't know, reinvent the concept of a gas leak, to put it lightly. Speaking of manifesting their will into a dark world, how the hell would literally anyone else other than Noelle know about her fear of electrical sockets smiling at her? I want to emphasize that. How the hell would anyone other than her know about this? Sure, there's the potential that Noelle's mom knows about this, but Noelle's little blog post specifically points out that her mom almost heard her, but didn't. Like, I seriously don't know any other way of interpreting this. This shocked me so much as a kid, I screamed and pulled my controller so hard it unplugged the console. I actually started crying, but I knew my mom would turn off the game if she heard me, so I held my breath and started hiccuping and gasping. I literally thought I was going to choke on my tears. It only made me cry more that I had to plug the game back in by myself. I was so scared that I would get electrocuted and die from the wires. I was actually always afraid of electrical sockets too because I thought they were looking at me. Come on, I wasn't a weird kid, I promise. I got over it after that. Oh yeah, and the wiffle ball that shows up as both an attack from Queen, as well as a moon in the background of the Ferris wheel scene, is another great piece of hyper-specific detail that, like, if she didn't make the dark fountains, why are they there? Like, it's so hyper-specific that it feels like this is, like, one of those Toby Fox patent-pending, like, hidden-in-plain-sight foreshadowing devices. And I feel like I don't need to tell you this, but the egg room in chapters 1 and 2 are just references to the white egg found in Noelle's Cat Petters game. No matter what I did, I couldn't move or throw away the egg. I tried clicking it over and over, and in the end, all that happened is that it made some sort of weird sound. It was freaking me out so much I deleted the game and reinstalled it. But the egg was still there, obviously. You try and get rid of the egg, it comes back. Noelle tries deleting the egg, it doesn't work. Regardless if you want it or not, it will always find a way to show up once more. Noelle is the only character, at least at the time of writing this, that's had a direct encounter with these white eggs, and they're just here in the dark world. And no, this doesn't count, we're talking about what led to them being there, not just simply seeing them. And I'm sure you've heard this one a million times by now, but egg, translated into wingdings, shows the movement path of a knight piece in chess. Noelle already has so many connections through the man himself that sometimes the most straightforward reasoning is correct. The mere existence of these rooms in the Dark World offers some of the strongest proof of Noelle being the knight. Like, I'm not even kidding. Oh my god, guys, he's not even kidding, that's crazy. But, speaking of connections, if you isolate the notes in the second half of the Lost Girl theme, it's a direct Gaster quote, like straight up. The second half may also show up in another theme, but we'll get to that when we need to. Okay? Okay. Non-Euclidean egg rooms, smiling electrical sockets, and amusement park rides and fantasy worlds. Do you know what all of these have in common? They are all memories only Noelle experienced, or constant thoughts that keep permeating her mind. And when I say only she experienced them, what I mean is, like, upon the creation of the fountain, she had those memories in her mind when it was made, because there's an implied motif of, like, the will of the creator showing up in the way that the Dark World looks. That's what I mean by only experience, not that she's the only one who's ever seen them. Speaking of memories, that wiffle ball acts as a great segue into some very strong thematic motivation for Noelle. On top of that, what I'm talking about next is arguably the greatest mystery in this game. We all know her, even though we've never met her. I'm, of course, talking about the theme playing right now is called findher.ogg. It either is or is associated with the character December Holiday, or Des for short. For those of you who don't know, Des is Noelle Holiday's sister. She's either missing or... the amount of times she's referred to in the more hidden parts of the game, it's obvious she's a core thematic pulse of Deltarune's message. How exactly is quite hard to parse considering the game isn't fully out yet, which is the bane of all Deltarune theorizing, but it is alright. We will pull through, we will persevere, we are strong, we are independent, we will get through this. But that is not going to stop us from going full throttle into the chasm of fan interpretation. If Find Her, aka Finding Des, is such an important task in the game, don't you think it makes the most sense that the literal sister of the one who is lost would resonate with that sentiment the most? I mean, your father is dying in the hospital, you've grown noticeably distant from your closest friend and neighbor, the thought of standing up to your own mother terrifies you. Noelle, out of the entire main cast, has more than enough justification to lose herself in fiction. Keys, buttons, spelling. Does anyone else find it weird that the game spells it out to us? Yes, I'm talking about the scene with Kris and Noelle. You know, the scene where she's temporarily drawn as a younger version of herself, that younger version of herself being used when she's asked to spell out her sister's name. This game consistently shows a motif of Noelle looking for her sister on the internet, and that shows up in the Dark Worlds. I don't really think I need to spell this out, but those keys that you've been pressing in the beginning of Chapter 2, those are just keys on a keyboard. I brought up how Noelle's memories would be showing up and manifesting in the Dark World. Well, her search to find her sister is showing up with the keys that you've been pressing to spell out certain words in the Dark Worlds. You think it's just a coincidence that Icy shows up in Chapter 2? The character that Noelle was afraid of as a child, in the route that talks about her being nostalgic for her childhood fears. Deltarune loves to do this. In fact, the game does it not once, not twice, but 3 times throughout the duration of Chapter 2. First time is with the big keyboard letters with Kris at the beginning of Chapter 2, like I brought up. Second time is with the spelling bee, and the third time is with the calendar in her room in Queen's Mansion. Well, there is a 4th time, but that one really only counts if you... Now, I've been ignoring the ever-growing screams that tell me Kris is obviously the knight for, like, this whole video essay, but I did that for kind of a good reason. Kris is obviously going to be super important to the narrative, but I personally think they're involved with expressing the themes of personal autonomy and the lack thereof. If Toby didn't include Queen describing how anyone with enough manifested determination can open a dark world, when Kris makes one on screen, the only thing you could conclude is that Kris would be the knight. But tragically, there is like this response to a response in the community about people who don't think that the night is going to be a grand mystery. This is a game shrouded in mysteries, and the character that cause and it continues to allow the plot to happen isn't going to be a mystery, like a whodunit. It's just really kind of perplexing, honestly, because there's like this holier-than-thou mentality you get from the folks who think Kris is the knight. Not all. I mean, if you believe it, it's totally fine, but there's tragically this undercurrent about like how it's like the correct one and all these other ones just get caught in all these little details, but Kris is the only one that thematically makes sense, and it can come across a little bit patronizing. But there will always be one counter argument to the Kris Knight truthers. The only timeline of events that makes sense is Kris opening the fountain at night, because that dreaded timeline after school of when before, like right before Chapter 2 starts, really doesn't work at all with us controlling them. If the fountain was made during the night, Ralze would have said something as soon as we enter the Castletown Dark World in Chapter 2. But he doesn't. And when he does do it, it's in the Chapter 2 Fountain World, and he says he hurried over, and he's someone who's consistently shown to be someone who wants to close the Dark Fountains. Why would he be coy about this? It'd be severely out of character. And again, a lot of this comes up to just pedantic stuff of, oh, it could happen later, but hindsight bias and it could happen later is not a good basis for your argument or your theory. Regardless, Toby Fox will make it work. Toby Fox is a good writer. Frankly, he's one of the only good writers out of all the indie games that are popular right now. Hot take, but not really. The conflict of Undertale was a tragedy between 2 siblings. In Undertale, that conflict involved Asriel and Kara. Asriel took Kara's body back to their village, and because he didn't listen to Kara's desire to fight back, it led to him dying as well. In Deltarune, I think it's between Noelle and Des. What do I think happened? I think Des was written out of the story she was supposed to exist in. Deltarune is constantly making reference to the process or the deliberate action of overwriting something. Your choices are overwritten in the Goner Maker sequence, they're overwritten in the Thrash Machine sequence. Hell, when you first create a save in Chapter 1 and 2, I mean, we even override Noelle's desire to go to the Dark World with Susie in Chapter 1, if you believe she's the knight. Even controlling Kris is an extension of overriding something else. The thing is, though, Everything that is or was overwritten eventually shows up again. The Goner Vessel data is saved in your save file, the Thrash Machine head you chose shows up in the Giga Queen fight, Kris temporarily regains control, and Noelle eventually does go to a dark world with Susie. Try as you might, that toy wooden block will eventually make its way to the other side. When doing any sort of discussion about who the knight might be, it's always asked why the knight, the roaring knight, doesn't just open up a bunch of fountains really quickly, causing the roaring. Well, if that knight is just on a quest to find a sibling that's been lost for almost a decade, then they wouldn't have to cause an event like that at all. A misunderstood villain is a precedent already set in Toby's work. Hell, and if anything does go wrong, Noelle has already been written to be someone who can block out any emotional memories that she doesn't like. Very convenient that one of the main characters has a coping mechanism that allows her to downplay the potential harm she might be inflicting upon other people. And by now, I'm sure we all know that very iconic line. It's arguably the most iconic line in Chapter 2, the "Watch what happens when I cast a spell I don't know." This is in a chapter where two characters, Susie and Rouse, have to learn how to act in their act menu. And here Noelle is just having the ability to do that, to do the Snowgrave. I posit that I don't think this is the first time Noelle has been in a dark world before. Dare I even say that destruction we see in Chapter 1 with Throne Room with the slashed banners where it says it's been in through some sort of struggle, that really closely mirrors how we see Noelle in Chapter 2 with the destroyed landscape before she gets captured by Queen. All of this to say, if something that's misunderstood or overwritten eventually turns up, it's only a matter of time until Des makes her presence fully known. And that time is approaching faster than we might anticipate.
Where am I? Hello? Anyone? Is anybody out there? Someone? Anyone? Can anyone hear me? It's dark. So dark here. Someone? Anyone? If you can hear me, say something, please. No one can hear me, can they? I guess not. To be honest, I'm not even sure if I can hear myself. I'm so quiet here. And yet, sometimes, I swear I hear something. Something like scratching.
I'm going to do something most night analysis videos don't do, and that's use evidence that runs counter to my theory and incorporate it back into something that works. Ready? Okay. The biggest counter running against Noelle Knight is how she fits into the very idea of the weird route. Seems like it runs counter to everything, right? How could Noelle be the one making these fountains when her will is so thoroughly overwritten by her own? Well, I would like to bring up just how many times the normal route brings up themes of prophecy and predestined fate. You know, lines like, the tap will be waited until you choose to run it type stuff. If Noelle is believed to be the knight, then that links her to this idea of predestination, aka the prophecy, you know, like the angel's heaven and all that stuff. So, to have a route in the game that actively runs counter to those themes, so much so that the character tasked with enforcing them is dragged along against her will until the plot all but splits and twine, makes this feel like a pretty great thematic inversion to me. In a game about personal autonomy and the lack thereof, an outside force threatening the possibility of letting you create a new future for yourself feels like a great extension of those ideas. By forcing Noelle down this very linear goal for no other purpose other than to see what happens, the weird route, and by extension, you, override her growth to become her own person and forge her own future, and by extension, find Des. You know the Geneva Conventions? Well, I'm a little Geneva unconventional. That's why I'm going to do another thing Deltarune theorists don't do most of the time, and that's talk about Toby's inspirations and how they might be important to figuring this game out. Deltarune is inspired by a lot of games, Shin Megami Tensei, Final Fantasy, the Mario and Luigi games, the RPGs, but no inspiration is quite as strong as that of the Mother series, specifically Mother 3. Oh yeah, interjecting here to let you know that this part covers a ton of spoilers and reveals from Mother 3, so if you have not played it, which is probably most of you have only played Lucas in Smash Bros. That's probably where most of the Mother fans come from, is through Smash Bros. Let's just be real here. Speaking of real, If what I'm about to describe sounds interesting to you in the part coming up, now you have one of the best RPGs ever to play while you're waiting for Chapter 5 to come out. Just for XDs and epic lows, you should totally name your family members after the characters in Mother 3. This will go well. It is a foolproof strategy, 100% guaranteed, no money back, 3 easy payments of $4.95. With that said, Toby likes Mother 3 so much, he jokingly says it's the game he rips off from when he's out of ideas.
If it comes to the West, you can play it and realize how unoriginal I am.
The inspiration is sometimes so noticeable, I think the Don't Forget motif itself was inspired by a part in one of Mother 3's tracks. Thank God the end of this video doesn't use Toby's inspirations and prior work as a basis for a possible bombshell discovery that was alluded to in the beginning. For all you pagans, cavemen, and single-celled organisms that just came out of the primordial soup at home, that's what we call foreshadowing. Deltarune draws many inspiration parallels from Mother 3. But how, I hear the Protestant Church of r/Deltarune asking? Well, dear viewer, let's run through them, shall we? In Mother 3, you have a power struggle between light and dark. Whoever pulls the most amount of needles from the ground determines the fate of the whole world. While I'm talking about swords, I think it's at least noteworthy to bring up how in Mother 3, the world changes when you pull a blade from the earth, and in Deltarune, the fate of the world rests with those who stab the earth with the blade. If the inspiration couldn't be any more direct. And on top of all that, you have, and this is the most important bit that brings this full circle, a sibling who's been lost for a very long time, with their presence in the narrative growing as the plot progresses. After, events then transpire in the wacky world of Mother 3. Klaus, one of the main characters and our soon-to-be lost sibling of interest, demands that whatever, how do I put this in a way that doesn't spoil massive reveals? He demands that whatever redecorated the family house the same way a 10-gauge shotgun redecorates somebody's face deserves to be brought to justice right away. Also, oink oink, pigs involved. Oink oink, man, that cloth on that tree sure looks interesting. I'm sure it's nothing though. Sunflowers, sunflowers, sunflowers. In fact, he wants revenge so right away that he leaves his hometown before telling anyone other than his younger brother, Lucas. You know Lucas, the character that most of you will wrongly identify as, oh, that's the kid from Earthbound 2, right? Klaus ventures into the mountains to find the threat that caused this, and, at least from the perspective of the in-universe characters, disappears from the world for years. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Both games echo ideas and themes of a sibling becoming lost. We've talked about Noelle lying to achieve something she wants, her memories and her experiences reflecting in the shape of the Dark World's themes of overriding and prophecy, and of course, deaths and inspirations. But before I end this video, I have one more hint of proof on my end that doubles as a possible major discovery I made while writing this. Alright, here it is. It's been foreshadowed throughout the entirety of the video. Here it is. That's right, Lost Girl is uncomfortably similar to Nightmare Night. For those of you who are musically inclined, you might notice that I've transposed the melody to B minor so it harmonizes with Lost Girl. However, the structure of the melody obviously remains the same. The intervals, the contour, and the general rhythm of the melody pair together so well. I'm amazed how few people have actually noticed this. There's a couple of people I've seen on Reddit, but most of those are from 5 years ago and have like 20 upvotes. Multiple years go by, and like the rest of everything in this video, nobody brings it up. It's so weird. Quick little recap before we end this. We've covered Noelle's search for her lost sister, how she'll lie about having chalk, thus instigating the entire plot casually. We've covered how her memories manifest in the Dark World. We've covered themes of overriding choice and prophecy, Toby's design inspirations for his own work, and a potentially massive revelations with Noelle's theme and Nightmare Night. Seriously, somebody with more musical context like Shay or Andrew Cunningham, please look into that one a little bit more. I may be a composer of 7.5 years at the time of writing this, but I don't have a formal music education. So please, I greatly appreciate a comment about that from literally anybody, anyone at all. Oh yeah, and one last small thing, the Chapter 4 fountain looks more likely than ever before to be taking place inside of the church, especially with the Spanish Sweepstakes 2. Yes, I'm writing it that late before 3 and 4 come out, that event happened and I'm still making this, but go ahead and take a wild guess where Noelle is going to be on the day that fountain gets made. With all of everything being said, given her emotional motivation with her family, her thematic motivation to find her sister, and her physical motivation with everything that shows up in the Dark Worlds, I think Noelle Holiday is one of, if not the strongest candidate in the entire game to be the knight. And if I'm wrong, I'm killing myself. Obviously not, but I think that pretty much covers everything I wanted to discuss and cover. If you couldn't tell from the conviction of my vocal delivery, the confidence I have with my ideas is pretty goddamn strong. Noelle Holiday, you may return from the stand because I rest my case. Hey, thank you to anyone that made it to the end of this video without exploding violently. This is the first ever video essay I've fully completed, and I'm curious to think what you guys think about the style of editing. It can be kind of a pain when it comes to the editing / vocal delivery part, but I think it was worth it in the end because everything releases in a state I'm happy with. Fun fact, I started working on this in December, so even my script writing process is thematically relevant. Speaking of things I'm happy with, remixes! Remixes! I have 2 of them. If any of you want to hear a fusion dance between The World Revolving and The Mind Electric, there should be links on screen for it now. The video should be called something like The Revolving World Electric, and the other one I posted should be called something like Distorted Timeline Priority Demo 4. I'm also working on a video game in my spare time, but that's for a different time. Not now, maybe not ever, but a different time all the same. That's pretty much everything. Before you go, just remember, time is a fluid circle. Its shape flows like waves at sea. Anyways, goodbye.